Hey guys, Chris and Kenny from Tillman Family Farms. Today we are going to be doing the fourth installment on how to become a pig farmer. In this video we're going to talk about the care of your animals. You've gotten them to the farm, you've had a little while to get to know them and spend some time with them and see their mannerisms and all that stuff. We're not going to review the other 3 videos. There's 3 other videos. If you want to start to become a pig farmer, go back to video 1 and watch the whole series, because it's all going to be very beneficial to you. So the first thing we're going to talk about today with care is if you're doing feeder pigs, right, and you're selling meat. I know we've talked about doing this a couple different ways, but we do meat. So having bulk feed readily available for them is a big deal. We have only had 1 bulk feeder to this point because we've only cycled in and out, and we had a 2-hole bulk feeder. But we've been doing bigger groups, anywhere from 10 to 17 pigs. So this is another feeder group of 10. We needed another bulk feeder, so we decided to build this feeder. It's a farm builder design from Jordan Green. You can get these plans for this. It's a super cool thing to do, using a lot of materials. So a bulk feeder will cost you about $3,000, to where I'm in this one for less than 500 bucks. We're gonna have a short video that explains this thing up close in another video, but having feed readily available for them and having the feed in a dry fashion. So your bulk feeders need to have lids on them, or they need to have some type of cover over the troughs. Water is the next thing. I would almost venture to say that water maybe even be a little bit more important than the feed is. If they can't process that feed, you can have all the feed in the world, but if you let them run out of water, 3 times a week, they're not processing that feed the way that they should be, and they're losing out. So a good water source is another thing. We keep barrels out here with pig nipples on them. We've showed you guys that before. So we do 8 months. So these guys are going to be moved. I think this is their 4th or 5th paddock out here in these woods. They're running great. They're cleaning up the woods for us, taking out all the small brush and anything else that's around on the ground, picking up nuts and all kinds of stuff. So having them to where they can roam free and then be moved so that they're not on their feces and things like that throughout their life is very important. So I want to take a few minutes and talk to you about the importance of moving your pigs and moving them often. I know it's hard to just sit here and think, how does that help the health and the care of the animal? Well, look at it this way. So if you don't move them, they're gonna be living in their turds. So with that being said, the benefit of moving them off of all that stuff is gonna help with the parasite load. It's going to help to keep your ground in better shape and let the work that they've done be beneficial to you instead of a nuisance to you with holes everywhere and all these different things. Most of the time when pigs come through and they're satisfied with what they have, they'll root up the first 2, 3, 4 inches, and it's just kind of spread out and strode all over the place. You can get them to replant your seed before you move them. A lot of times it's beneficial to go through a paddock with a seed spreader and spread seeds. They're gonna eat some of it, but they're going to cover up more of it and push it in the ground more just by walking around and rooting up and everything else. They're gonna be covering it up with their nose, and they're gonna be pushing it in the ground with their feet. So moving them often is a big time thing. You can do the same thing with chickens and pigs that Joel Salatin does with chickens and cows. You can let the chickens follow behind the pigs for so long and let them clean up the manure and spread it and all that kind of stuff. But parasite load is the biggest reason to move them as often as possible. 7 to 14 days is about the time span to leave a pig in one spot. If not, they will, that's when they start digging those deep holes and they start, having these big, huge wallers. I've been to a lot of farms where people didn't move their pigs. They had specific pig paddocks that pigs were in all the time, and pigs were up to their bellies in mud, couldn't hardly move around in it. It's just not a good situation. So you can use them to help you clear areas, and you can help them, or you can get them to help you with the soil in those areas. So big time thing, move your pigs every 7 to 14 days. The next thing I want to talk about with pigs is and you probably come across this in your studying on pigs before you ever got to this point, but pigs don't sweat. So in the summertime, it is crucial that you have some kind of wallow for your pig. They will wallow in the mud and they'll get mud caked on them, and that will act as a sunscreen for them, and it will also help them to regulate their body temperature. So always having some kind of mud, even if when you're watering, if you have excess water, just dump that water out there. Your pigs will love you and thank you for it. These guys here, they make their own mess, and they knock the barrels over themselves. If I let them get too close to the nipples, they'll knock them on over and they'll create their own waller. So they're keen to what's going on, but keep your pigs cool in the summertime. It's also smart if you're running sure enough pastured pigs. This past summer, we created a shade structure on a trailer that we could move paddock to paddock to paddock, simply because of the fact we were running pigs in open pasture. Now, when I say open pasture, like we might have had an oak tree in 2 or 3 different paddocks over about 5 acres that we ran them through, but they definitely need something, and they need to have shade and some type of mud. If you can run your pigs in the woods, or at least half in the woods and half in a pasture during the hottest part of the summer, that would be a very wise idea. All right, so I know one of the big things on everybody's mind when it comes to caring for pigs is worming and vaccinating, and what kind of medications to have around and things like that. So here on our farm, we are trying to produce the most natural piece of pork that we possibly can, okay? And what that means to us is that we don't vaccinate. We do worm. These animals living outside, and the way that they root through the ground, they're gonna pick up parasite load almost no matter what you do, so we worm, okay? And that cycle for us, these pigs get wormed 3 times in their life. So they get wormed when they're weaned from their mother at about 8 weeks old. They get an injectable ivermectin. And then at about 4 months old, they will get an ivermectin paste. So that's given orally. Our pigs are socialized enough to where we can literally just get in there with them. We set the dial on the paste. You can pick up this paste at a Tractor Supply. You can order it off of Jeffers. We actually use the horse ivermectin. It's apple flavored, and they love it. So we do that, the injectable at 2 months, which is the 8 weeks at weaning. And then at 4 months, we'll do a paste. And then at 6 months, we'll do another paste. And then they will be off to the butcher at 8 months. We have never had a processor call us and tell us that the USDA has turned down our meat because it had a worm load. So we've been very successful controlling parasites that way. Another thing to think about, so when I say we don't vaccinate, we just don't. We don't do any of that stuff. There's a lot of people that they want antibiotic free, and they want all these things free in their meat because they have health issues that require them to eat that way. So it's a big deal for us to keep it that way. If you want to vaccinate your animals for whatever reason, that's research that you need to do on your own, because here all we do is worm them, okay? So big time deal. They get wormed 3 times and it's perfect. It works out great. All right, so this is it, last portion of this video. This is something important to us. We keep what we call a closed farm, which is very easy for us because we are farrow to finish. And what that means when I say a closed farm is that we don't bring in other pigs from other farms. We have done that, and I'll tell you in a minute how we do that, because it's a very strategic process. But keeping a closed farm means that you would literally, your pigs would literally have to dig up some kind of disease or something like that on your property, because there's no other animal to bring it in and give it to them. You know, when you and I get a cold or the flu or COVID or whatever, we've passed it from one person to another. With this being a closed farm, they don't get that opportunity to be around other animals, okay? Now, I know you're thinking, if you're farrow to finish, sometimes you have to change out your animals, or if not, you're gonna have this crazy inbred three-legged pig running around out here. So if we bring an animal from another farm, we have some type of quarantine pen for that animal for at least a month, okay? And when I say quarantine, I mean a paddock pen, something set up at least 150 to 200 yards away from any feeder groups or breeder groups, and we will keep that animal there. We'll monitor them and we'll worm them as soon as they get to our farm. That's the first thing we do, because we don't ever trust what somebody else is telling us, okay? Unless it's family. But we'll worm them, and then we'll just observe. We'll feed them, we'll treat them like the rest of the pigs, and see how they do. And as long as they show no signs of illness or anything like that, then we will slowly start trying to integrate them in with the rest of the pigs. But that's a big thing. Closed farms are I mean, it's just a safe practice. You'll learn, if you ever go to an auction, I don't advise buying pigs at an auction, but if you go to an auction, you'll see some sad looking stuff wandering around in there, and it's people trying to get rid of stuff that they don't want, or it's been a problem for them on their farm. So just be careful of that kind of stuff. But we're going to close this one down. We appreciate you guys watching. On the next one, we're probably going to go over structures for pigs, which there's very few, but we are going to go over those. So stick with us, man. I hope you guys are learning something. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you on the next video.